New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev BRZ and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And hello again, dear ones. Rev BRZ with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And we are a couple of ministers talking shit. This happens every Friday morning here on the New Thought Media Network. So grateful that you are with us. First up today, I want to say a big thank you and a shout out to Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni for sitting in and joining us last week. And Rev Z is back. Still not in your normal studio, off gallivanting with your wife. We agree with this behavior, by the way. We really enjoy it. I really like that you're doing this. So welcome from the snowy mountains of Colorado.
Yes. It snowy and howling wind. Even if you hear something that sounds like a wolf, it's the wind howling out here. But it's intermittent. It's like dead silence, and then you get a whiff that comes through and sounds like a wolf. But yeah, man, it's good to be back, and life is good. As we know, the world is continuing to turn as we look at all of the going ons and all atmospheres of the life that we live. So it is an interesting thing, and we love the challenge.
Yes, and Z, in our prep, right at the very end of our prep, you got to something that I think is where we want to kick this off. You said America is under attack.
Yeah.
Share with us what brought you to that.
Well, I as we always do, we there's so much news, and we try to find 2 or 3 stories, 4 stories, or whatever that are facing us as a global society, and how do we look at it from a spiritual perspective. And I'm looking at all of the stuff that just happened this week, and I'm just saying we are under attack on every front, not just from the shootings and the weather and podcasts where people call all kind of crazy things. Not this one though. And then as I'm looking, all of this stuff, the technology is attacking us. I mean, it is a place where where do we find refuge? And it made me think about the statement by Master Commander Oliver Perry, who was in the War of 1812. They've modernized the statement. The statement he really made was, "We have met the enemy and they are ours," right? But that's been more, we've met the enemy and the enemy is us. They kind of made it a little more flowery. But I think it's true. We are our worst enemy. We publicize this stuff. We attack our own people. We don't pay attention to the weather or the conditions that we find ourselves in, and then we want to blame everybody else for what we've truly contributed to. And so we're under attack, and we have to, as they say, put on the armor of spirituality, not which is things like meditation and reading uplifting books and greeting people and exchanging ideas, so you learn about culture, so that we can break these chains, if you will, of this attack on ourselves. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And that to me is the beauty of New Thought, is it does provide us the armor against the constant onslaught of what appears to be negative news out there. Hey, let's say hi to everybody real quick. Good morning, Wayne from Calgary. Good to see you. Glad you're with us. Fiona tuning in from Geneva. Good to see you. Glad you're with us. Linda here in the mountains of Colorado as well. Staying warm, I trust. Good to see you, dear one. Anyone else that's watching live, please feel free to chat along, join the conversation. Let us know you're out there. If you're watching on a replay, you're welcome to do that as well, and we'll be happy to respond as we go. So it is easy, right, Z, to fall into. I just saw an article this morning or last night that newly elected Congressman Jerry Fetterman in Pennsylvania, who had a very tough race against Mehmet Oz, is in the hospital and is being treated for what is being called clinical depression at this point. Now, man just got elected to Congress. Shouldn't be a place where you get depressed. However, if we look at the news, allow ourselves to be influenced by this constant onslaught of negative news, the Atlantic Ocean temperature in the Atlantic Ocean is now documented as having risen, which is another indicator that we might be in the midst of the beginning of a polar swap. That's another story for another day. We've got shootings in pretty much every major city of America, pretty much any given day of the week. It would be easy to fall into that depression. And I think for a lot of people that don't have a spiritual practice, that don't have a spiritual community, that don't have a strong, and I'm going to say it, not just understanding of this philosophy, but a strong belief in this philosophy, within this philosophy. It is those with the strong belief that I feel kind of buoyed. Yeah, it pains me, but it doesn't debilitate me.
Right.
Because I've lost track of how many shootings there's been this week. El Paso, Michigan. There was one here in Denver last week. A 13-year-old was killed here in Colorado this past week in gun violence. High school. Still haven't heard all the details on that one.
Just to pick that point, on the basic principles. I mean, if I had to narrow down the principles of New Thought, as they called it, the spiritual principles are very simple. You could break them down into three things. One, there is an intelligence universe. There's an intelligence in the universe that we can use it. Everything is connected to everything. And that if we allow ourselves to connect with the divine intelligence and to understand our connection with the people and the plants and the animals and every doggone thing in the universe, there's nothing that we can't do to uplift people, places, things. Doesn't matter. But we have to operate from one accord, knowing that we're together. It just brings to mind Ann Coulter, who was on Mark Simon's show podcast. I don't know the name of the podcast. She made this statement about the latest GOP candidate for president, Nikki Haley, and said, "Why don't you go back to your country?" And I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute, I thought she was born here. So I said, made me question myself. I had to go and Google. Oh, yeah, she was born in this country. Her parents are immigrants from India, but she was born in this country. And so now we have this person, a pundit on a podcast that's spitting venom. And now, I mean, last year we had the plot to kidnap the governor of Michigan. What's to say you don't get somebody, we don't need no immigrants running our country and just get them, let's kidnap. You know what I mean? We are our worst enemies if we allow this stuff to keep happening and to follow it and to publicize it. And I'm gonna shut up right now because but it's crazy.
It is crazy. And as New Thought, I have to believe there is light in this tunnel somewhere. There is light in this crazy somewhere. And this whole Nikki Haley thing, right. I'm aware of who she is. I'm aware that her politics, that she was appointed by Trump as an ambassador. I'm aware, but I don't really know exactly her beliefs, her her worldview on how to run a country, on how to continue the shift towards wholeness and oneness in this country and away from division and separation. I don't know where she lies on all of this. So I'm excited to witness and to see where this campaign goes.
Yeah.
She is a woman of color. She is a woman in the GOP. That in itself, and she doesn't appear to be one of the reactionary, oh no, I didn't, no, you're that, I'm not, kind of contrarians. But so I think it'll be really interesting to see where the attacks come from. And this whole thing about go back to your country is that not the absolute opposite of what this country was built upon?
Yes.
Have we really evolved from welcome everyone to screw you all, go home?
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Now get the hell out.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay here. You don't have to go home, but you got to stay. You can't stay here, kind of shit. It's
and the statement. Give me your tired, huddled masses. I forget the exact phraseology, but that statement alone says we are open to people who have been disenfranchised, who've been taken advantage of, who have been not looked at as real assets to whatever, right? We know. I mean, you look at that. The statement itself says we understand that everything is connected and everybody has value. We, come here. We got opportunities for you. We can use you. We can create a community. We can create a atmosphere that allows you to thrive.
Yeah.
But then, that what some people seem to not like or have, is a discipline and a work ethic. None of we talked not too long ago about someone making a statement about magical thinking. Well, these principles, they can produce magic in your life, but they're not magical thinkings. You got to do something to get that magic to happen.
Right.
And it's challenging. So it's going to be interesting as the election begins now, because she's the first one other than Trump who jumped in. There's rumors that DeSantis is going to jump on the GOP side. DeSantis is going to jump in, and that Pence might jump in, and God knows who. But as this thing starts revving up, the opportunity to understand a spiritual connection to life in the midst of politics is going to shine bright.
Yeah, I agree. I think we hadn't planned on going this direction this morning, folks. However, we both do know a religious science minister, a science of mind minister, that is actively working towards getting involved in state politics here in Colorado. Didn't have an awful lot of luck last time around. Ended up running against an incredibly well-known candidate, and she's going to continue, and she's not backing down. So now is the time, I believe, for New Thought to start being heard in the halls of Congress, and just for the philosophy. Not for someone preaching it, not for someone trying to sell classes, but actually living this philosophy in the halls of our elected officials. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those candidates because we know more and more and more people recognize the value of positive thinking, the value of recognizing and working in our oneness. So this value has to influence our politics, and I'm just looking for the politicians that are willing to say it publicly, so we can support them more.
Yeah, and one of our viewers said there's never been a universal vision agreed upon, and I would ask anyone who doesn't believe that there is a universal principle of diversity and inclusion, just look at the planet you're on, right? There is a diversity, there is if you go to a forest, there is an integration. It has been proven scientifically that there is integration, there's communication, there's assistance, and one that's highlighted in like the rainforest is the whole relationship, the symbiotic relationship between mushrooms and trees, on how during the different seasons they absorb different energies and different nutrients, and they go back and forth to help each other maintain their existence, right? And those are just two things there. Now we're not even going to talk about the microbes and the insects and the animals, and eventually us humans who eat the mushrooms or of the food, or take the herbs and for cure. So there is a diversity and inclusion that is foundationally grounded in the planet that we live on. So we have to begin to look at that and understand that we got all the science. We got, again, we go back to our $6 million man. For those who remember the program, says, Steve Austin, he's an astronaut. He's almost dead, but we got the technology, we got the know-how, we got the wisdom to bring him back stronger, faster, and that's what we have to do with everything, including our society.
Yes. All right. We do have a little bit of clarification on that last statement. We're sorry, we don't know who exactly this is. If you're on Facebook and chatting along, you have to, there's a link somewhere in the description that should let you authorize StreamYard to tell us who you are, so we know who you are. But regardless, the clarification, talk about the United States, what's on the Statue of Liberty has never been agreed by those who govern the country. Spiritually, yes. Politically, no. And not knowing the exact verbiage on the Statue of Liberty, I do agree, absolutely. Politically, I don't think we've ever really been there. And but yes, you're spiritually, we are there, and in this world of oneness, I believe it's time for this country specifically and others to embrace that, to fully live into that. And we're not doing that. There is quite a bit of division and separation out there. However, I also do believe that we have these opportunities to step in. But we're going to have to be willing to stand up to the bigots, and we're going to have to be willing to stand up to the people that are tearing down the country. I'm going to speak specifically about Congresswoman from Colorado, Lauren Boebert, who I don't believe represents the true essence or the true belief pattern of her district, and has hijacked her seat to to push a private agenda, or a MAGA agenda, if you will. But we have to, those of us with the spiritual wisdom, have to be willing to stand up and say, no, that's not the truth.
Yeah. And you made a point there, is that, and thank the viewer for clarifying, because that sparked this idea. We have it spiritually. So we have to begin at an early age to get our young people involved in spirituality, not religion, but spirituality. And that means, from my perspective, looking at life as a sacred entity and all that is entailed with it, so that I can look at individuals for the value that they bring, for the essence that they bring, and for how everybody has something to offer. I mean, back in the day, so to speak, if autistic individuals, they looked at them as not being able to provide a whole lot to society. And I saw a program, I don't know, not too long ago, where they had some individuals who were just, I can't touch them. I mean, it was finding hidden stars in the universe. And I mean, they were providing a service because they had the detailed attention, because they had the patience, because they understood how everything was connected from their perspective. that they were able to give a value that that so-called average person couldn't do. So no matter what it is, everybody has something to add, and we got to begin to respect people, race, creed, color, sexual orientation. I mean, all the words that they use for these things to really create separation in my mind. But
right. and yes, you're hitting the point. And number one, is Nikki Haley not the perfect example? Right? If you polled 1,000 Americans and said true or false, the first female of color president of the United States will come from within the GOP, the Republican Party, 90% of the people would say false. I make up all my statistics on the spot, by the way. Most of the people would say, no, that's never going to happen. The first female president's going to be a Democrat. The first president of color was a Democrat. The first female of color will be a Democrat. What happens if the first female president of color is a Republican? What if that is Nikki Haley? I'm going to not only look, but be pretty stupid if I just dismissed her out of hand because she served Donald Trump's presidency.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even heard her platform yet. And we have a pretty good idea what she's going to run on. We have a pretty good idea what her beliefs are. It's not like she's been out of public life or is a total newbie to political life. However, we don't know what she's running on yet. And of all of us, I think, not to say we got to run out and embrace the Republican Party if you're definitely a Democrat, but we have to be willing to be open to the oneness, to coming together, to having dialogue, to exploring where our unique belief systems overlap rather than where they diverge.
Yeah. And she was born in South Carolina, went to Clemson University, and we talked about this before, and I don't know if it's offline or online, but again, just the nature of our politics, Democrats and Republicans, automatically sets up separation and contention against two parties. And we have independents and some green and libertarian, but what I try to embrace more now than ever is that I want to get to know the candidate. And like you said, what's the platform? Because there are very few things in life that I accept 100%, right? And so that's definitely going to be true for politics and candidates. And so we have to begin to look at, I think one of the ways anyway, is a holistic view of life again and say, who has the best platform to serve as many components that need to be addressed as possible and not conflict overly in a negative way some of these other things, because we know life is moving, things are moving. So we know, even if we got 100% right now, 10 minutes from now, it's not going to be 100%. So how do we begin? How do we begin to do this so that we can create this world that works for all?
Exactly. Sometimes, sometimes you don't win for losing. You don't lose for winning, right? Yeah. Joe Biden's being aggressively attacked for not having shot the Chinese spy balloon down sooner. And then others want to defend and say, well, he surrounds himself with better people than him, and they told him don't do that. And we learned a lot about that balloon during that week. So now we know where all these balloons are, and now we're shooting down balloons every damn day. And yesterday it hits the news that the 3 balloons we shot down last week have no tie to a Chinese spying program. We actually don't know what they are. Don't know if they're private industry, if they were private research, if they were somebody's toy that got loose. We're shooting down balloons. We're wasting missiles on balloons because we were sold a package of fear.
Yes.
And if you ask me, it's real hard to look anywhere other than the Republican Party for where that campaign of fear came from. And then it became a campaign of accusation. And now it's becoming a campaign of we need more transparency. Okay, I'd like to see some more transparency around everything that's going on in the Republic, in politics. Yeah, I'd like to see more transparency.
Yeah.
But I see one group that predominantly obstructs the truth and throws smoke at the transparency, and one party that generally tries to do what's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just made me. I was talking to somebody. I heard something about the whole word woke, right? Now,
Mhm.
and how that a simple word like being awake or being woke has become I don't know, it's something bad. It's like this
Right.
woke culture. It's like, who do I want driving the car that's asleep? I mean, you're driving a big old semi truck here called United States. I want you to be wide awake, not just woke. I want you to be wide awake. So you don't run into something. But it has been turned into something negative to say that you're woke, that I'm waking up to the separation, to the fear, to the
Yes.
rabble rousing, to all of this. And so now that makes me something bad because I'm more aware now
Mm-hmm.
of me, myself, and all of my surroundings. It's
To the
crazy.
1%, yeah, you being awake and aware is a bad thing. They don't want people awake and aware. They want sheep that are willing to just go along with the flow and listen to the Tucker Carlsons and listen to the Ann Coulters and create a politic of culture, a cult of personality, and go with it. Yeah. uh,
And I'm curious. I'm hoping, and it sounds like Nikki Haley may take a higher road and be
I'm
an
hoping.
example for the GOP to say, look, yeah, we're going to have differences maybe on the way we approach things, but we can articulate it so that it doesn't delve into hatred.
Right. Right. Exactly. And as America's top diplomat under Trump, I would hope that she's had that taste of the universal, that taste of the oneness in the multiculturalism that is the planet.
Yeah, and just by fact of who she is, you know, a child of immigrant parents from India, I know her cultural upbringing, even if it was in the South, uh, has been vastly different than someone else. So even though she may buy the platform of less government and more people involved, which is kind of the staple of the GOP, right? Her articulation of it, her vision of it, her way to implement it is going to be vastly different from most of the characters in the GOP.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I'm not making a campaign statement for her, but I'm curious to see if she has the wherewithal to hopefully begin to change the conversation, which will change it on both sides, Democratic and Republican, and we can begin to talk more about issues and not necessarily something that doesn't matter that I did when I was 15. I mean, if you did something bad when you're 15, that's one thing. But
Right.
if I wore
Well,
short pants to church, I shouldn't be penalized for that when I was 15.
so okay, so let's go back a little ways and imagine ourselves as Nikki Haley at age 15. If she said, I'm going to be president someday, what kind of response do you think she got?
Yeah.
Most likely, even from her parents, right?
Yeah.
Even from her family, there was oh, honey, that ain't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't going to happen in this country.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's still a lot of people in this country today that immediately said, black woman, Republican, nope.
Yeah.
Have not even given her a chance to voice her perspective on this great country and this great political system that we're figuring out. And we've already discounted her because of her looks, her gender, and her belief system.
Yeah.
we got to be willing to say, hey, she's got every qualification at this point that we can see. Let's give her a chance. She may be the bridge that puts this country back together.
And she made a statement the other day where she said we got to get more young people involved, right? She's 51, born in 72, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she made a statement. I'm waiting to hear some blowback. Basically saying we need to get the older politicians out. And she said something. I think it was her or somebody to ask her something to this effect, that at a certain age, these leaders need to be getting some psychological profile done. And I'm sure that's going to bubble up somewhere. But I mean, I kind of agree with that, because I'm getting older, and I know I'm not as sharp or fast as I used to be. I'm still pretty fast though. But I get it. When you're getting up in your 80s, and you're running and you got stress on top of stress on top of stress, that's a young person's gig.
Yeah. And just the change in life view, the change in right. I remember somewhere somebody said, if you're not a liberal in your 20s, you have no heart. But if you're not a Republican by your 50s, you have no money, or something to that effect, right? Like, yeah, it's okay to be a liberal when you're young because you have heart, but you'll grow out of that, and you'll grow up, and you'll realize if you want to have a successful life and have money and then you'll become a Republican. I personally never followed that, but and I'm in my 50s, and I don't see myself changing. But it doesn't mean that the good ideas, that a good idea, that a way, that an avenue for healing, an avenue for us to have dialogue and conversations again, can't come from a Republican or someone in the Republican Party. Hell, for all we know, Nikki Haley could be a libertarian wearing Republican clothing. Could be a libertarian hiding in deep red colors. Who knows?
Yeah.
We're gonna find out.
Yeah. Well, and the spiritual anchor, not an anchor to pull you down, but to hold you firm, is that we have to begin to actualize, not just verbalize, but actualize this idea of connectedness on this planet, right? Because there's nothing that everything that everybody does affects everything else. The whole butterfly effect, right, is a phenomenon that's true, as I can see it, and we have to begin to get involved in the politics, if you will, get involved in your civic duty, watch the polls, volunteer at the soup kitchens. We have to begin to be actual living examples of what true spirituality is, which is, I am my brother's keeper and my sister's keeper. And so when we can do that, some of this other, but when I get to know you, not just as some object or just as some character, and I get to know you, then my whole viewpoint changes.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Linda chimes in, the Queen was a strong leader well into her 90s. Be careful about bias based on any single factor. Absolutely, Linda. And what I heard Z saying was not based on a single factor of just age, but a policy. And I think that would be vital for leaders across the world in any nation, in any form, in any political system. I know there are plenty that don't like the Queen's policies, and still don't look at the Queen as a beneficial leader for all. That's another show. That's another debate. We could have it another time. However, regardless of our perspective of how she performed, I absolutely agree with evaluations at various times along our journey. I would say the same for clergy, for ourselves, for political leaders, for business leaders. I mean, we look at what business leaders do in the world sometimes when they're dealing with billions of dollars of other people's money, and they can go off the rails and make dramatic changes. I would believe in screening and testing for everybody, really.
Yeah, well, and the other thing, thanks for that comment, London. And it's not a bias; it's a policy. We're talking about policies, right? They don't. There's a policy that they don't want you driving a vehicle if you're impaired by some substance, right? And they have tests to detest that, right? So all I'm saying is, and it wasn't me who said it; it was Nikki Haley who said it. But I kind of I can lean towards that by saying we have someone who has the ability to say fire a missile that can destroy the planet, and we're not taking any pulse on their on their mental capacities. Now there's there's fail safes, right? With other people in the office, but imagine the stink that could cause if we got to a DEFCON 4 or DEFCON 1, whichever the one is that they want to shoot the missiles. And all I'm saying is that in everything else, we have checks and balances, and everything else in our lives, and everything even in the universe, the sun doesn't come up and stay up forever. It goes down, right? That's a check and balance so that we don't burn up all the plantation. But, we have to begin, I believe, from a spiritual perspective, living a real life, is we have to get involved, and we have to have these kind of conversations to come to the point where we say, okay, let's find the ground that works.
Yeah. Let's find the ground that works. So one more comment before we wrap this up from our, you're known to yourself, but unfortunately you're not known to us. The Facebook user that has chimed in also added a comment. There can be no world that works for all if I cannot get my life, relationships, finances, etc. to work for me. Yes. And this is the ultimate yes and. If Nikki Haley waited until there was a female of color to believe she could run for president, she still wouldn't be running for president.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a both and. Yes, and. Yes, I am doing my own work for myself. And sometimes I have found in 20 years in this philosophy, doing the work in the world, doing the work with others, doing the work for others leads me to my own healing and to my own expansion and my own growth. So I can't do one without the other. I can't wait to be a good presence on the planet until I've got all my shit together, until I am perfectly whole, complete, and absolutely beyond reproach or question. Nothing would ever get done. I have to be willing to wade into the water, to wade into the deep end, to take that deep dive and say, I'm working on me while I'm supporting the vision of a world that works for all.
Mm-hmm.
Simple. It has to be a both and so otherwise we end up sitting in the cave and not being willing to look outside the cave.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of that story. I don't know if it's true about the eagle, that the eagle has the eaglets and they're not flying, and they say, well, look, you got to go, and they push them. Sometimes we need that little push to get us involved, and so it's a both and. We didn't watch mama fly and daddy fly. Now we got to fly, and sometimes we need a little push to get beyond that initial fear to say, I might not do it right the first time, but I know it can be done because I've seen it countless times. So I just got to jump in.
Yep. May be time to kick ourselves out of the nest, folks. Prove that we know how to fly.
Yeah.
And I believe we do. I believe New Thought as a philosophy has the ability to not lord over the world, but be in partnership with existing philosophies, with existing faith traditions, to be in partnership and a collaborative partnership in creating this vision of a world that works for all.
Yeah. Do I dare say become woke to the true realities of the universe? Do I dare use the word woke in that sense? I mean, I'm not sure. But
Hey,
yeah,
if it makes your heart sing, I don't see it hurting anybody. I don't see what we. Yeah, say it again. Become woke to the universe.
Become woke to the realities of the universe and the connectedness of it all.
There we go. All right, folks. I don't see that there's much more to be said after that. Become woke to the realities of the universe. Yeah, I'll go there.
Yeah.
Let's go there. Hey, folks, we're a couple of ministers talking shit. We do this every Friday morning, 7 a.m. Mountain Time. If you have something you'd like to hear us chatting about, please send an email, ministertalk@ntmedia.org. If you'd like to take a deeper dive into today's subject, you're welcome to send us an email, ministertalk@ntmedia.org. Or if you'd like to be a special guest and come sit around and shoot the shit with us some Friday morning, then by all means, send us an email, ministertalk@ntmedia.org. We'd love to chat with you and perhaps even have you on the program with us some morning. There we go, Fiona. Become woke to New Thought. Yeah. All right, folks. It's you know, I'm going to say this just before we go. I don't know too many people on the liberal side or the left side of political thought that think wokeness is all that bad. Most of the people that are woke just want more to be woke.
Yeah.
It's the people that ain't woke that don't understand and don't want people to wake up.
Yeah. Well, there's profit in not being woke, right?
For some. All right, Wade, you're right. Top up your cool with New Thought. Top up your cool with the New Thought Media Network. Stay with us today. In just a few moments, Be Your Own Hero with Sekou Wrights is on the air. And morning prayers start at 8:15. 8:30 is the morning sip with Rev Melissa. We're in the final few days of our 40 days of stress-free living with Emma Moreno at 9 o'clock. 11 o'clock is Practicing Infinite Possibilities with Lindsay Lineback. 1 o'clock, The Joy Show, Just One You with Reverend Barbara Schreider and Trudell from CSL on the Lake in Toronto, Canada. I'll be back at 5 with the good news, and Pastor Michael will be here at 6 o'clock with the fireside chat. Stay with us for that. It's a big, huge day here on New Thought Media Network. We hope you stay with us and chime in and tune in as we go. Z, any final thoughts before we wrap this up today?
Hey, let's all go get a cup of coffee and wake up.
There we go. I don't like coffee, but I might just come wake up.
I'll just get a cup of tea. Get a cup of tea. Something to warm the body and warm the soul so that we begin to say, we can make this happen. Let's wake up and make it happen. There we go.
I'll order a Starbucks for your hotel room there for you.
Yes.
We'll have somebody deliver a nice cup to you. Folks, thanks for being with us. If I have a final thought today, it's don't go back to sleep. Plain and simple. Don't go back to sleep. Get that cup. Stay woke up. Let's have a good time this weekend. I'm Rev Robert. Until next time, we wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.